Thank you, Mr. Gum, the inimitable Daryl Gum. It's just not a webinar without that voice. Seriously. All right. Welcome, everybody. Happy holidays. We're going to kick this off with just a little tiny bit more housekeeping. Sometime in the middle of this, for those of you who are on Zoom, right? Jerry is going to send out a survey. Please, please, please fill that out, because that helps us know what questions you want us to ask the traders for the next call that comes around. Okay. Also, please notice that if you are in the MTT room, or you want to be, you might want to look into signing up now, because December 18th, JC and Stephen Sykes from public.com will be doing a prep for the tax loss harvest trading that he does at the end of the year. And then JC and the rest of the gang will be doing tax loss harvest trading the last day of the year, which is December 31st. And that'll be happening all day long. So put it on your calendars. And with that, let's get this party started. All right. So I guess I'm just going to, I'm just going to round robin. So I'm going to start with David. So here you go. Here's a softball. So what's your trading moment of the year for 2025?
Oh, that's an easy one. That's March 3rd, shorting the market. So that's now I also started a few times in February, covered those, but March 3rd is the day we broke down below the Voodoo Fire line, and things really started to get going down into those April lows. So I got about 60% of my short ES position on that day as we broke down. It was a busy day, scalping in, shorting, covering a little bit, shorting, covering a little bit, and building up a position like that. And then we just carried that all the way down into the April lows. So you get a nice leverage product like that for a nice big 20% move, and that makes a year.
Yeah, I can see why that would be your favorite moment.
Yeah,
but
it worked out pretty well.
That's beautiful. Trendy John, Mr. McKeever.
Hey, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you for coming here. We really appreciate you. I would say the exact opposite of what David just said. So buying that dip right when David decided to cover, probably around that time, we came into a buy zone. It was not comfortable. It was a tiered process, but it all worked out. And patience, due diligence, and a lot of Zen-like moments kind of led me to my success for this year, buying that big dip. So same thing with Tesla.
Nice. Mr. Yeager, what do you think?
Quite similar. I think it starts before that, though, a little bit. If you recall, we go back to, it's actually started Q4 of last year, which is important because that's about where we are now. And, you hear this thing about, people lose their minds in October, but you also learn over the years that lows, are made in sometime in October, sometimes late October. But at that time, we were looking for very specifically now, so this is important and goes to right now, a bid to come into the market and last quite specifically, if you recall, if you think back, very specifically through the end of the year and into February options expiration. And if you can look back over history and you can find this, even the COVID high was at Feb OpX. And that's where the volatility starts. And if you really want to dial it in, it's like the expiration of the Feb OpX, but that volatility often lasts 5-6 weeks. It goes into March OpX. And so we actually started, short in the market, and it worked out really nicely. But it got better, I think, where Trendy John just pointed to, and that was when JC, if you remember, JC had timing lows there around that time. And then just as this thing started to bounce, then David Starr picked up on that Zweig breadth thrust indicator. So since we were looking for the volatility into the March OPEX. But then when the uptick started with that indicator, that says, yeah, long, but not only long, but long for a lot. And so that's important, carries us into now because here we are, Q4 of this year. And so if you were to ask, like, well, that answers your question, so that's it. But carry it further, then that would have me to anticipate holding this just like last year into yet again Feb up X, and look for the volatility, et cetera. Wash, rinse, repeat. So I point back to answer your question, for this past year, but it also carries forward into, trade ideas for just ahead of us now. So that's it.
Nice. Mel, what do you think?
I'm going to go a little different, and I'm going to say that my favorite part of 2025 was actually the last week in December 2024, when I was very intentional with the room to plan ahead the big major buy levels going into 2025, because it really set us up to be ready. And I think the anticipation of, hey, when we get down to this lower yearly trendy edge, we're going to be ready to buy these names. And so I think my favorite part of this year was the preparation for buying that dip that the other traders have talked about.
Nice. Heather?
So I'm going to keep with the initial theme of not necessarily a day. I couldn't get as specific of a day as David did, but the tariff tantrums in March and April. One of the things that's awesome about being an options trader is that we can play any direction. And I love being able to make money when the rest of the world is panicking, when all of our friends and family who don't trade and who don't understand the markets think that the world is coming to an end. And with those big sell-offs like that, I love getting big fat put butterflies where you can just cast a really wide net and catch a bunch of profits. So yeah, those 2 months, not quite a moment, but March and April were a blast for me.
Nice. Mike?
Well, I
Welcome,
am
Mike.
thankful to be here with everybody. And I actually have an event and a quick little moment that I'll just go over quickly. The event was just being able to be at that money show in Orlando with the Simpler team and getting to know the crew and just networking. I think I'm very proud of myself and the networking community. And I think traders all across should definitely work on themselves networking wise, because that helps your trading out tremendously. So definitely we're all behind screens, but work on that. And then the next big thing, which actually, this is my first time announcing it. I was going to post it on social media after this, but 2 weeks ago, I actually just crossed my big 500K profit milestone. So that was a big moment in my trading career. It's some people, like we have a ton of talented people here at Simpler. So like I said, I'm thankful to be around them, but some people that might not be a lot. For me, that's a huge milestone with an account that only started at 3,000. So excited for the new year and what's ahead.
Nice. Well done. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And welcome. And I know you have your fiance now and all kinds of big stuff happening in 2025.
2025 was an amazing year. I know I skipped over that. That's crazy, but
Yeah.
we're sticking to trading for now. But that did happen 2025 as well. Big
It
moment
did.
as well there.
And lastly, but clearly not leastly, TG, you just happen to be at the bottom of the screen here.
Hey, no worries. Yeah, Michael, congratulations on both of those. I always know what it feels like to get a good account gain like that. And good thing not to leave the fiance out either. So my best trading moment of 2025 was the tariff tantrum low. I was all over that thing. And the most exciting part of it was when I was able to recognize the low a couple times, because there were a few things that the market was actually showing and demonstrating that kind of alluded to that the low was in before Trump came out and said pause and a couple things like that. And then I pretty much went all in. I took some of my smaller accounts, if you guys remember some of the videos that we did for marketing, and I had one relatively small options account, and I threw 95% of that account into SOXL options, and they were monthly options. And this is something that I don't normally do, is get that aggressive on relatively short dated options. And I remember all of this was based around the news and the pause and then tariffs and then China and then Besson going and meeting with them in, I don't know, Switzerland or something like that. And I just remember I was getting within 5 days of my options finally expiring, and we're up pretty good, but I knew that there was going to be something that was going to happen. And I figured it was all going to be based on this China news. And of course, it actually happened. And then Sunday night before the market opens, news comes out that Besson had a good meeting with China. And I'm just like there at 2 o'clock in the morning, look at my phone and like saw the good news. Then I'm looking at the futures and it just jumps straight up like this. And then I was like, it's going to be a good day. It's going to be a good week. And so we got out on that Wednesday for 2,060% gain on that trade. And boy, that really made my year. And it was just exciting to be able to really, really take advantage of that situation and then throw it all in there and have it work out.
Very nice. Dang. Well, I have to say for me, honestly, the best part of this year was the simpler event in Austin. We had a great time, and what's even better about that is that we know we're going to do more. So stay tuned for that as well, because those are killer. All right. Awesome. Those are some pretty good ones, I have to admit. So this one's a little more of a less trading and more, well, it's kind of trading, but why think about this? Why do we all love doing this? Why do we show up every day? So I'll start with you, TG. We'll start from the bottom this time.
Yeah, well, we get exciting moments like that, like the story I just told, but they are balanced with some of the more aggravating ones where you get surprised in a negative way and all that kind of stuff. I like it because I'm able to take my future into my own hands, and this is where I've ended up, and it's been good, and it's been a fun career, and where we're going, and then more specifically for me because I started out with New York Life and doing financial services and life insurance, and I kind of always wanted to help people out there. And I thought that was a good way to do it, but I just didn't really like the business. And now that I'm here, it is a direct way to help others and help people learn about the markets, grow their accounts, and just have a good time. And it's really nice being around you guys, having a support group, having coworkers that we can actually go hang out with and talk, and then having subscribers who ask questions all the time. And this helps further our continuation of education and just makes me a better trader every time they ask questions and I have to explain something over and over, because then you see the same process over and over. And so, yeah, just trying to give back and see when, you get that 2,000% gain. Or like today, we had something on GEVX that popped up 45% today, and, everyone's kind of happy about it. So it's really kind of good to see those things. And hopefully that kind of balances out sometimes when you make a bad trade and whatever.
And we all do, right?
Yeah.
Mike?
Yeah, I'm gonna give that generic answer, but then I'll dive deeper because everyone gives the generic answer of freedom, and that's obviously what everyone loves to trade for. That's what you hear everywhere. But for me, it wasn't even too long ago when I didn't really have that freedom. As in, I was working a corporate job, actually selling gym memberships like 9 months or 9 years ago. So it is a long time ago, but at the same time, I do remember it because I went to South Beach a year ago and I actually passed by the gym I used to work at. And I just remember every day I'd drive to South Beach with a 45-minute drive there, a 50-minute drive back, and you'd have to pay still for the tolls. So I'd be spending 10 minutes for all this. And then you'd get there and your boss would yell at you. So to be able to eventually, and that was at the beginning of my career, just to get out of that and to just find myself to kind of do my own thing. And I forget about those moments when I'm like 9 years later down the road. So I try to keep a booklet or something next to me. And this is actually one of my Orange Theory booklets. It says 2017 on it. So it was about like 7, 8 years ago when I officially quit. But yeah, just to give that freedom that I am doing this by myself on my own. And sometimes you got to pat yourself on the back, but I think it's better than other people kind of pushing you down.
Nice. Neil?
Man, I tell you, same thing. I mean, it's freedom. It's the freedom to be able to make my own decisions. Did you get this project done or whatever? I can decide what I want to buy, when, if I want to be long, short. If you don't have if you don't own a company, then you go to a workplace. If you go to a workplace, you're dealing with interoffice, politics and people. If you do, then you're dealing with, accounts receivable and payables and all the, governmental stuff. And I mean, here it's just, if I need to break free, and I do sometimes, to go like pick up my daughter or something, I can easily do that. And manage things, manage positions from my phone while I'm doing that. So, so that's part one. Two, I get a kick out of seeing the feedback. When we hit a big nice lick, and folks are, getting the trade setups down and benefiting from them, and we get the feedback that's, it's really helping do the same thing for other folks, and that's really that's a big part of it, honestly. Somebody will say, "Man, great trade," for that idea. And I'm like, I didn't even get a part of it, but I'm certainly happy to to hear that you did and it worked out well. So that's really it. Um,
You've
yeah, I
been
hope
doing
that
this a long
answers.
time too, haven't you?
Hmm?
You've been doing this a long time, haven't you?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Um, Close to, not quite, but close to 20 years. 19 probably.
Nice.
Yeah.
Mel, how about you?
Without a doubt, my favorite part. What I love the most is the people, without a doubt. Um, just not just being able to help people, but the camaraderie in the room, the support, the encouragement makes me happy to see people engaging, supporting, and helping other people, and just to be a part of such a supportive community and get to do it from home and get to travel as I wish because you can do this from anywhere. Without a doubt, that's what I love the most.
Nice. Heather?
Well, certainly everything that has already been said, I absolutely love the freedom that it provides. That it can't be beat. But in addition to that, just the endless possibilities. I mean, Mike talking about taking a $3,000 account to a half a million. I mean, anything is possible. Nothing is off limits, and I love that. But I think for me, if I'm talking about options specifically, what I love about options, my favorite thing about options is that every day there's just a puzzle that has to be solved. And there's a whole bunch of different ways that you can solve that puzzle. But really, the question every single day is, how am I going to make money based off of what I'm seeing in front of me? And sometimes the answer is nothing at all. But there are so many different ways to solve the puzzle with options. And I just absolutely love that. And we were actually talking about that in the small lot trading room today. We have a brand new member who's never traded options before. And so I really got to break it down to the very basics. He's gone through our learning center, but as you know, there's a difference between watching all the videos and actually sitting down and doing it. So the fact that I got to just go over those very simple basics between a long call versus a put credit spread. And, they both have the same idea where you have a bullish opinion on a stock, but you're going to have very different outcomes with those two different strategies. And I love that we get to do that. We get to figure out, how do I want to make money off of this idea?
Nice. Trendy? What about you? Why do you keep doing this?
I got a good answer. I'm addicted. That's it. I'm addicted. Let's be transparent, man. It's addicting, but for all the reason everybody's saying. First of all, TG, Mike, you guys, I think what you do is you bring a lot of hope to traders. I mean, honestly, I think we're all here because we want to make money. And so when you get to share stories like that, it's very encouraging because it is not easy. I'm addicted to the challenge. I'm addicted to the failure. When I fail, it's like I want to wake up in the morning, and what's really cool is I get to do this in front of thousands of people, and I have to hold myself accountable. So when I teach people, I also like to do exactly what I teach. So I love to validate, and really they keep me on my toes. And I think that's what I'm addicted to, is like they put me in a better place and make me a better person. And I just couldn't ask for more. So that's why I'm here.
Nice. And Mr. Star, otherwise known as the Big Bad Voodoo Daddy. Unmute.
Yeah, that would help, wouldn't it? So I certainly get the the aspect of freedom that resonates with other folks. When I um, first started to trade full time, I, I had my own consulting practice. I decided to wind down. I didn't want to be on the road all the time. I was a single parent, two kids, and I needed that same freedom that everyone else had, and I enjoy it and I love it. But that's not really the reason I do this every day. The reason I do this every day is markets fascinate me. Every single thing about them, the ability to go in and grab money out of them fascinates me. The internal mechanics and workings of how options prices move fascinates me. I studied it from an academic standpoint years ago. Um, and in academia, they don't tell you that options are for making money. They tell you they're for hedging financial risk, right? Same with futures, but we can use them to go out and make money. And there's lots of intricacies to how they work. The better you understand it, the more you can use them. There's intricacies to understanding how the markets move, how things move relative to each other. There's new stuff every day. It is never dull. It is always fascinating, and I just love it. Right. So yeah, that's it.
I like it. I'm going to read it here what Sid said. Well, he said John and team, so I'm guessing he means not just Trendy John, but also Mr. Carter, who isn't here today, but that's okay. He said, I tried so many platforms in the past, and one platform I was a customer of theirs for 20 plus years. I'm going to embarrass you folks, but you are so good. Keep doing what you're doing. Thank you. And level up even more expertise sharing, more for us. And thank you. So thank you, Sid. That was very nice. Oh, Ram. Thank you, Ram. Heather and I know who you are. That was awesome. Thank you very much.
Hey, Ram, thanks.
We like it.
You
right?
friend.
I don't think any of us would be here if it wasn't anything that resonated with us. Right? We love teaching. We love the markets fascinate us. All of us. I'm always fascinated with the fact that it's an auction place, which people seem to forget, and yet it flows, right? It's phenomenal. So very cool. Vincent has said he's addicted to the education and gets with simpler. I would agree with that, Vincent, because you're in many rooms. All right, and one more. So this one can be a little longer because, well, before I get to that one, what do we think about going forward now? Right, Pal danced the dance. He tiptoed across that tightrope that we expected him to tiptoe, but the market was fairly bullish, given that they're not so sure they're going to be cutting again in January. So I'll start with TG again. Actually, I'll start with Neil because I know you might have to leave. What are you looking for? Where do we go? Oh, he might have actually just left. So I'll start with TG then. Neil had to drop off.
Okay. Yeah, of course, Jerome Powell was able to walk the walk and dance the line and said all the right things, it seems like. So the market continued to go up. It, was breaking out after consolidating all week. And it seems like, the market really did price in rate cut, but then also Jerome Powell, I guess, was dovish enough to keep the market happy on top of the rate cut. And kind of, so looking at the indices, obviously they're up a bunch today because of that. And underneath the surface, there are still things that are up. I had a good day with it, but I'm still seeing that towards the end of the day, there were actually some tickers that were starting to sell off. And I'm thinking this is because that a lot of names had moved up over the last, since Thanksgiving, because they had already priced in the idea of a rate cut. And so now they're up because of that. And now they're up to the resistance. And I'm actually looking at some of these things were kind of looking extended. That's why I was a little bit neutral about today's action. Like, is it going to be a buy the rumor, sell the news situation, or can we keep going higher? And so I think we still have to kind of take this as a case by case and a stock picker's market because the names that have gone up and they've run into resistance, we could actually see them kind of fade off over the next few days, couple weeks, as they then test support, kind of have to digest their moves. And then I would like to see them continue because I do think we're in a bull market, obviously. But names that have come up off the lows still need to get into the right patterns. They don't just go up and then keep going up. They come up, they pull back, and then they go. And that's kind of where I think we are. Other names that are up and still going up, great. Keep riding the waves with those. They don't have any resistance overhead. They don't have weird moving averages that they have to turn around and kind of, work way back up to the upside. So just kind of case by case. But overall, market's doing well. It's great.
Nice. Mike, since you're a resident small cap guy, what are you thinking?
For the upcoming year that's coming up?
Or at
Okay,
least in
yeah,
the
this
next
is
quarter.
I'm actually very, very excited. So if you go back to March, when Simpler was kind of asking, it's actually great. You made me go right after TG because that's our two videos went back to back. We were actually in the car together. He did a car video, so I backed it up with another car video. And I was really, really bullish while everybody was kind of getting a very nervous, nerve-wracking time. And that's while everything was dipping, so it makes sense. Now we're at all-time high, so it's a lot different, but it seems like everyone's nervous again. So that mentality seems to be back, which I think it's time to wipe those nerves away. I do think next year we will see all-time highs in the market, but not only that, with the small cap, we've seen tons of volatility in a lot of sectors, and that's usually where small caps can really heat up. Meaning quantum stocks went nuts this year. Now they've dipped a lot. You have robotic stocks that are just starting to come up recently when Trump just said something on Wednesday. So we have a lot of things that have recently got these huge spikes, and now they've led back to cool off. But I do think even Bitcoin as well is a good example of that too. But I do think we are going to kind of make our ways and curl back to highs. The important part is more what TG said, understanding when there is possibly those consolidation weeks, because nothing is going to go straight up. And I think in September to October, we kind of got this big spike in a lot of these sectors out of nowhere. But then you get the fallback, the consolidation, and that next leg up, I think, is around the corner. So don't get too aggressive when you are going through those consolidation times. Getting back to freedom, enjoy your freedom. That's why we talk about freedom as a trader. When you know that this week might be a consolidation week, that's the beauty about trading. Enjoy the time. But when it is time to shine, you got to be there and be ready to go. And I think 2026 is going to be one of the best ever, at least personally for me.
Nice. Heather?
So, I agree with Mike. I'm still bullish going into 2026, and especially with midterms at the end of 2026, I would not be surprised at all to see this administration kind of handing out some treats and as a way to maybe buy some votes going into the midterms, or maybe even it's just maybe we get some really good data, whether it's real or whether it's manipulated. It's not for me to decide, but yeah, I'm very bullish going into 2026. But regardless of that, I do want to give one really strong piece of advice going into this year for every single trader: to journal every single trade. And it does not have to be an essay, but if you can write down why you got into the trade, what your plan for the trade is, why you got out of the trade, and what you could have done better. Those 4 things, if you can do that for every single trade, I promise you that by the time we have this conversation this time next year, I guarantee you'll be a better trader. So that's my big piece of advice. Who cares what the charts do? I could be totally wrong and we could end up crashing. But if you journal every trade, you will be a better trader by this time next year.
Nice. Melissa?
Speaking of journaling, I had to cancel that session after the market today, and the people were not happy. But thanks, Heather, for mentioning that. It's a huge part of my trading, has been for over the last 3 years. So such a huge part. The trading mindset. What's between your ears is the biggest factor. Because if you can keep your emotions under control when the market hits levels that you have predetermined to execute on, then you're like a Lorna bot and you execute at those levels because your trading mindset, your emotions, your logical brain is overpowering your emotional brain. So great stuff there. As far as what I see after FOMC, honestly, I don't think it was really that telling. If I'm just being honest, all right. It moved 50 points, but it came right back up into the resistance levels that were there last Friday. I think it was last Friday that we came right back up into that level, and so far we sold off from that level. So I would say I have a lot more confidence that we will be up and making a new all-time highs in at the end of this year if the ES can get up and above 69.10 and actually hold that as support. The good news about that is that the NASDAQ still has some room to run to catch up with the ES, and we know the NASDAQ drags the ES up most of the time, sometimes kicking and screaming, but the Dow is showing a lot of strength right now. So that's a good thing. And if the NASDAQ wants to catch up with the Dow, then I believe we will see new all-time highs before or maybe right around January, first week of January. But like I said, that is all just speculation. And the most important thing is no matter which strategy you use, please, please, please know what your plan is before price gets there. And then when price gets there, execute the plan. The worst thing that can happen is you're wrong.
Well said. Exactly. If you're wrong, get out. Trendy?
Yeah, to piggyback off of that, she used the level. I'm right there with her, 69.10. Every December, I set out a projection for the end of the year. This is probably my 5th or 6th year doing this. I take a lot of pride in it. I usually hit my targets by the end of the year. As a plan is developed, we want to know where our buy zones are going into 2026. I could tell you right now, we look just like 2024 before going in. We were super extended on the quarterly charts. I would be paying attention to your big charts. They're not going to make it easy. It's probably going to get extended. All of my targets have been hit except for ES futures, which is 7,016. And I mean, I'm looking right here and we are literally about 50 points away from the all-time high or so. I do think that's coming. I think that it will feel extended. There'll be a big diversion, just like in 2024. We're all going to feel it. It's going to be hard to press the gas because you're going to feel like it's too extended. And right when you start to feel comfortable is typically when they're going to pull the rug on you. They never make it easy. They just never make it easy. And so my advice going into 2026 is know your plan, just like everybody has said here. Know what your allocation is, know what your targets are. And the only thing that's going to happen is we're going to either make money or we're going to get stopped out. Don't be afraid to trade, as Mike said as well. I think that, be brave, know your process, and stick to everything that you know. And we're going to have an amazing 2026, just like in 2025. So,
Like Voodoo Daddy? Anything to add?
Yeah, I think I may have a similar view to TG, which we often see a lot of the same things in the market, even though we use a lot of different tools to figure it out. But I'm still bullish, like a lot of folks here. I think we are extended, like a lot of folks here. And so, like TG, I think we could see a lot of backing and filling on our way higher. And I think, if we focus on the portion up since April of this year, I think we're a lot closer to the end of that move than to the beginning of that move. Now, maybe that takes us into Neil's February OPEX that he was talking about earlier. maybe it's a little sooner, maybe it's a little later. I do think we want to be careful, but that's just what I see today, right? We come in, we take a look at this every day. Like Trendy said, we have plans, we take new measurements, we update that with information that comes in, and we got to do that. The one thing that I'll mention here, along with what TG was saying, TG was talking about being a stock picker here, which I think you want to be. But when we get to the latter stages of moves, participation gets a lot more narrow. And so one way to deal with that is to focus on a few stocks that you think are good. Another way of dealing with that is just focusing on the indices, right? So I did some of that today. I sold a bunch of stocks that weren't working. If we're all honest, we all have them, right? Threw those overboard, and today, when things looked all clear after the FOMC, I just replaced that exposure to the upside that I had before with an equal notional value of some MES and some micro futures, and I'm just as long as I was this morning, but a bunch of a, a bunch of white elephants that were weighing me down are just not there anymore, and it's a big weight off. So yeah, I just think we take it day by day. I would look upwards until we have evidence that things aren't going that way, but yeah, I think there's still more up. It's just not going to be as easy as it was June, July, August, which was just easy.
Yeah, the theme I heard from all of you is basically follow your process. Don't be afraid to trade, and don't be afraid to take your losses. Because if you take your losses at your limits, you're gonna grow your account, right? There's a lot of people I know, it's really difficult. You get into it and you get to the point where you say, I can't get out now. I've lost too much, right? But if you follow your process and you stick to your rules, it won't matter. It really truly won't matter. If you don't stick to your rules and you keep holding on in the hopium, that's where you get stuck, right? And I'm pretty sure every one of us have been there. And then we learned. I know I have. Here's a question from YouTube. Welcome, YouTube folks. That says, so free for all here. Anybody want to answer? Do any of you have any difficulty explaining what you do for a living to your family and friends? That's a great question. Go for it.
Not too hard. I've kind of learned over the years to just say that I teach people how to trade stocks. And then once you just say stocks and teaching, they kind of figure it out. You don't really talk about money or anything. I do think sometimes people think, oh, your stocks and financial, they think a lot of money, which sometimes is true, but you don't also think about the challenges and the risk and the learning tuition that we had to put in originally for all this kind of stuff and the road that it took to get here. It's not like we're with some big corporation where we're financial bankers and we're getting bonuses like that. It's a little bit more like, no, we got to do our own thing and make our own success here. And it's been a tough road. But no, I think it's pretty simple as far as explaining it to what we do. And that works for me.
Nice. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'll go. So family and friends, no, that's not a problem. I think because you can have, a little bit longer conversations. I always have a hard time though, like if you're at the dentist and the hygienist asks you, they're not really looking for a big answer. So it is, in that brief moment, that is harder to explain what we do. So
The hygienist, maybe not, but the dentist always wants to know your stock tip.
Well, that too, right? Yeah. So what do you say, David? Because I haven't come up with a good answer yet.
Vincent
yeah, that's
manages a family office. So there you go.
There's always follow-up questions, though.
I don't know.
Like say I work in the stock market, and
Yeah, I don't even say that. Fortunately, I have the fallback in that I can say I'm a programmer.
I think I was going to say something. I think one of the top things is really the first two people that are going to doubt you are your friends and your family around you. And that's inevitable without a doubt. Like my mom and dad thought I was gambling for like 4 years until you actually, really show it to them. And how you show it to them, you can't like talk it to them. You actually have to show it in the work that you put in. But to keep you level-headed throughout that, it goes back to kind of my first accomplishment that I was talking about in trading. And it wasn't a trading accomplishment, it was a networking accomplishment. And trading is a lonely game, guys. So a big part about this is, yeah, the people around you are going to doubt you. They're not going to believe in you. It's going to be very hard to prove those people wrong. But if you start to network with some great people, that the trading community has so many amazing people, and especially here, the people that I'm with right now. But if you can get with them, your bad days will be all right. And then when you look and you say, all right, that guy's doing it or she's doing it, I can do this too. So I think the networking part is very, very big in that question.
Lorna, there were some pretty funny answers in the comments.
Yeah, I'm just reading these. Vincent says he manages a family office, which is technically true because if you're working at home and your family lives there, that's what you're doing. Daniel says he gambles.
Yeah.
Well,
Love
hey,
it.
as far as gambling, the poker tours, that's gambling, and those guys are famous and they're on TV and stuff. So, yeah, I think it works.
There you go. I mean, my family thinks I'm crazy because options are scary, and how could you do that? And I'm like, oh well. A money launderer? Yeah, I know. I think I have to draw the line at that.
Yeah, then the government starts listening to you.
Yeah.
But you
Another
actually are a
indicator-
gambler until you chart your trades, just like Heather said. And until you actually journal and do that, you actually are a gambler. So it is very easy to divide that line. And I get where my parents and everyone else would talk to. But make sure you're doing that. And that's what really starts to prove to yourself this isn't gambling. I have an edge. And that edge isn't with a lot of people. Gambling's probably the same way, where there are people that win, but it's very, very limited. But it's possible. It's definitely possible.
um, on YouTube, someone said, any advice you can give me? I've been trading for 10 years and you haven't had to go anywhere. You haven't had to, I'm guessing what he meant is that he hasn't really gone anywhere. So tread in water. What advice would you give this person for how to get unstuck?
Join Simpler.
All right, I'll go with that. That's a good one. Anything else?
I think it goes back to journaling your trades. You're going to find patterns there. And then once you find those patterns, whether it's over trading or fear or greed or what have you, when you recognize those patterns by reviewing your journal every week, then put on a sticky note the thing that you need to work on. And then in your journal every morning, I journal before the market ever opens. That's when your logical brain is in control. Once the first charts pop up, boom, it's gone. Emotions have seeped in. So journaling beforehand and constantly getting those rules or things that I need to work on. Maybe that I've been giving back a lot of profits. When I do this, I give back a lot of profits. I write them down in my journal before I ever look at a chart so that it gets in my subconscious mind. And this year in particular, I've improved that quite a bit.
Yeah, so that's getting stuck at stage 2, right? Stage 2 is stop losing money. So it's good that you've gotten that far, right? But you're stuck getting to stage 3, right? Stage 3 is the making money, and there are a couple of reasons why that can happen. Um, one way that people get from stage 2 to stage 3 is they do just what you've heard a few suggestions to do, right? Journal, find out what you're doing wrong, do less of what's not working and more of what is working. And in order to do that, you need to know what's working and what's not working. Now that can sound difficult if you don't have enough that's working. And if that's what's going on, then it's exactly what you heard as the first suggestion. Come join us at Simpler, because you may just need more ideas for things that might work. A lot of us all trade differently, but we've all found what's worked what works for us. And you just need to find a style that resonates with you, and something that works for you that you can just keep doing day in and day out as you find something that works.
And
So,
David, on that point, I actually just had somebody ask me kind of a similar question this week, and because they've been around a few of our rooms, and he was in my room, and he was kind of like, tell me about your style, and why should I stay here, or why would it work for me? I said, I don't know if it's going to, but you need to try things out, see who you resonate with, and what indicators and what methodology do you resonate with. Because even when I was learning, I had a mentor that I learned from for 3 years. She was great. But it took me, I was 3 years and I still couldn't quite trade the way she did because the combination of indicators and just the way she did it, it just didn't work for me and I couldn't quite see it. And I finally had to move away from her. And then that's when I figured out my own path. And then I started to get success. And so I think if you are trying something over and over and over, it's not working, maybe you need to change it up a little bit. Like if you figured out that it's not just because you don't have risk control or you're gambling or you haven't figured out your process, if it's something else and you just can't see the market well and you can't see your indicators or you can't even read the market, then maybe you do need to kind of change things up until you can find the right method for you.
and that's so true, TG. You dug into a few really critical things there, right? The main thing you need to do is it doesn't matter what types of trades you take. It doesn't matter, or that doesn't matter nearly as much as having a clear view of the trades you do take, and just what different people can see. It differs a lot, and that's where what you talk about, what tools you use to see the market, and the method that resonates with you. That's where that comes into play, because you need to learn, what sort of pitches you hit well. It doesn't matter what the guy in the lineup before you hits well. It matters what you hit well, and you got to figure that out.
Definitely.
And also have realistic expectations about how long it takes. It takes most people several years before they become consistently profitable. We have to remember that this is not learning how to crochet. We're not going to figure it out in a weekend. So while you are learning and while you are trying to get it all figured out, focus on your process, not your profits. The profits will come as long as you focus on your process and you keep your risk small and manageable.
Agreed. That one of the things that it's hard sometimes for people to do is to go back to the basics, right? Journal your trades in whatever way works for you. I like more of a data approach rather than a narrative approach, but it doesn't matter. I look at my trades every day. I pull in the data and I go, that's not working. That is. And if you have to, honestly, strip your charts of every indicator and start simply. Go back to the basics, because maybe you've got so much stuff on your screen you can't tell what's going on, right? Go back to the basics and then slowly add as you're looking at it and going, oh, okay, this makes sense, and I'm seeing this over and over and over again. Process, process, process. And then once you stick to your process, you'll find that truly, like others said, the profits will come. It's a matter of sticking to your rules. Simplify, simplify, simplify. David, can someone teach me to crochet? No, sorry. I used to know how to crochet, but I could teach you how to needlepoint in a weekend.
We haven't.
And so Vincent pointed out what Trendy didn't say, but is true, right? When he was starting to trade, Trendy said, after some success, don't change what you're doing and start taking more risk. Continue to do what worked, right? And it all goes back to the same thing. Find what's working, find what isn't, cut what isn't, do what's working. Then you can scale, right? And that it's all about simplification. That's how you get your edge.
Yeah, Lorna. And I want to say one last thing for me, just to be very clear. I think it's really important from that person who was asking the question on YouTube is absolutely block out noise. There's so much noise, especially I would say in the last 5 years in social media. Everybody's an expert. And after COVID, we really had a lot of people jump on the scene who became traders overnight, whether they were on, different social media platforms who have pretended to be really good traders who don't have processes. So there's a lot against you out there. And it's easy to get mixed up in noise. I could go down 30 minutes and tell you all the bad habits that I made when I first started this venture. And a lot of it was just believing everything that I read or I saw. I think that you stick to a process. And just like a long time ago, when I met Mel, she was a student at one point, and I said, "Hey, listen, do this for 30 days. Don't don't go chasing other things, right? And just stick to this. And after you're finished, then you look back at your journaling and you look to see if there's any corrections or tweaks you can make. But the problem that I see, Lorna, with a lot of traders is that they're always chasing the next shiny thing. It's kind of crazy, but the market ebb and flows. And during that pullback, and not everybody's perfect at the pullback, is when it tends to get quiet and when they're looking for good trades. And that's when a lot of, I would say, amateur traders really start looking for other process to 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 make up for whatever they just lost, but they don't understand that's just a part of trading. You're going to lose in this. And then I want to say one last thing about the how you tell people what you do, because you brought up gambling, Mike. And I like to channel Mark Douglas here. The difference between us and gamblers is that us technical traders are lining up our sevens in the market. That for me means an EMA, a buy zone, a trendy turn signal. Those are my sevens. Then I put my money in. The difference, and I get a lot of people that say this to me at parties. That's why I say this. Hey, trading's just gambling. The difference is when a gambler goes to the casino, they put their money in, they pull the lever, they're looking for sevens, and their probabilities suck. So we are a lot different. That's all I have.
I love that.
And good reference to Mark Douglas, right? I am a big fan of the experiment. And if you don't know what that is, you can Google it and look it up on YouTube. Read his book, Trading in the Zone, which is a fantastic book, right? He was one of John's mentors. The experiment is at least 25 trades. You commit to a certain amount per trade and a certain amount per over those 25, and you don't change your rules. Because if you can do that and get consistent, it's a lot easier to figure out what is working for you and what isn't. Right? If you're always chasing a new shiny or a new process or a new mentor, or you try something twice or three times and it doesn't work, and you go, "Oh, this doesn't work," and it's statistics and probabilities don't work like that. You need enough data to know whether or not you have an edge, and to know where things are not working when they are. Right? Data is key. Daniel says, "Big successes and big losses really threw me." Have any of you faced that, and how do you manage it? I'm guessing it's kind of what we just said, but anybody have some nuances on that?
Tequila. Just kidding. I don't know why everybody's like holding back. I mean, I've sat in the shower and cried. I've told that story before. I'm a grown man. I've done all the wrong things in trading. And the only thing I can tell you is you might not want to hear this. That's a part of growing up and becoming an amazing trader. So these losses that you've had and these big wins that you've had, that's just part of it. You got to find your happy medium and figure out, first of all, be humble, because I'm here to tell anybody, even in the room, when I see our traders celebrating, I think that's an amazing thing. But I also tell them, hey, now let's be humble. Let's take that money and then just be a good steward of your money. Don't go throwing it at the next trade and think, man, I can triple this. If I just do this, I'll become a millionaire. I see that a lot with new traders as well. So be humble all the time and just understand you losing big and small is just part of the trading venture. So you'll get better.
I think probably the standard answer is if you're getting big losses, you need better risk management. And trust me, I'm guilty of that too. Especially when I was starting, I'd go big and then it wouldn't work, and then I'd be surprised, then I'd hope for it, and then next thing you know, it's just down. And even now, I still get some of that. I was kind of all in on the BMNR or BMNU, that's the leverage ETF of it, and I wasn't expecting that the crypto market was going to come crashing down the way that it did. So I did get kind of stuck in one of them. I should not have, but I know how to get myself out of it. I think that's the other thing is I'm not trading options on that one. It's just stock, and I know that it's pretty much not going to go to zero. And so I actually made a couple videos based on this, like, okay, how do you get yourself out of a hole? And I think using stock gives you some breathing room. You have things to kind of work with. And with the leverage ETFs, as long as you have capital to work with, and I think that's the biggest thing, is make sure you don't just go to zero, because if you run out of money, you're just dead in this game. You need to make sure that you always have some cash to survive with and get back in the game. And if you have cash, then you can continue working, pick yourself up. And if you got wiped out because the market kind of took a surprise downturn, if you have cash, get back on the horse, get back in when the bottom's here, and then you can ride yourself back up. I mean, that's what the tariff tantrums were. That's what the last, I don't know, 2 months were, because the market kind of went down. Crypto went down, the small caps went down. And if you can get the bottom, like BM&U, we're up 70% on the bottom trade, but we're down, 70% from the top trade. So now we're equal. And you just need to be able to get back in the game and just make sure you don't run out of money, and risk management.
Nice.
Well, one of the
Heather,
things
oh,
just really important on that last thing, one of the things that's really important, and only you can figure this out, is why is it happening, right? So a lot of us have guessed about what the problem maybe is, but why are you having big losses and big gains? Is it because the big gains embolden you to make bad choices? Is it risk management? Is it whatever? So you got to figure that out first. You got to figure out why it's happening. What are you really running the same process, or are you changing the process? What's going on? It's like otherwise, it's like calling the doctor and saying, "I have a fever. Tell me what's wrong." It could be 100 different things.
We're getting about to the end, but someone asked, Heather, you talked about 4 things to include in your journaling. Could you repeat those? So we can
Yep. So why you got into the trade, what your plan is for the trade. You need to write that before you get into the trade, or as you're getting into the trade. That plan means, what is your target? What is your stop? And everything in between, because sometimes price doesn't hit your target or your stop, right? So where would you get out, right? So that's your plan. That's number 2. Number 3 is why you got out. Did you get out because price hit your target or your stop, or something did you see something in between? And then the 4th thing is, what could you have done better? So
Awesome.
could you have stayed in longer? Could you have gotten out sooner? Could you have used smaller risk? Could you have picked a different target? All sorts of things, but always put something that you could have done better. And sometimes you execute your plan perfectly, and the trade works out exactly the way that you wanted it to. And so you might be tempted to say, well, I couldn't have done anything better. I did it flawlessly, right? There's always something, even if it went exactly how you wanted it to, there's always something that you could have done a little bit better in hindsight. And here's where that little part of your trade journal becomes magic, because if you start seeing the same thing coming up over and over and over again, like, you know what, I could have stayed in a little bit longer and made a little bit more. If you see that come up over and over again, that's a sign that you need to give your trades more room, or whatever it may be. But if there's always going to be a mixture of things, and this is what we see all the time, and we've done this too. But if I decide to hold on longer, then it goes against me, or if I, then when I try and get out too soon, then it keeps going, right? And we think I always make the wrong choice no matter what. Well, the truth is, we never know how it's going to go. So that's why we end up getting trapped in that statement of, I'm always picking the wrong thing. But the magic comes when you start seeing a pattern of the same thing. If you are saying over and over again, well, if I would have stayed in longer, then I would have made more money, or vice versa, whatever it may be, that's how you know that you can tweak your plan a little bit and become better.
Well, so that brings an important question, Heather. So is that what I could have done better? Is that outcomes based, or is that process based?
Either one. Yes. Yes.
Nice. All right. Any other words of wisdom? other than happy holidays, everybody. Anybody?
What? I have a question.
Okay.
That's yeah, I want to ask a question. Hey Mike,
What's up?
you do amazing on your I watch you, man, in the background on your small cap stuff. I'm kind of curious, man, when you gonna break into more options? Because I saw you dabble several months ago when you first came here, and I like what I was seeing, man. So I was just kind of curious if you're gonna dabble some more in options.
Mike, let me just tell you from another guy who was doing stock when I came into
Yeah,
Simpler, you come around here, everyone's going to keep asking you, when are you going to
yeah.
drink the Kool-Aid? When are you going to trade stocks? And
It's
eventually
gotta happen.
you're probably going to have to, even if it's small, you're
Yeah.
going to have to. Everyone's going to keep bothering you until you finally do.
Yeah,
Yeah, because he has a good process, man. And so I like to see that like with some options and
I gotta work. I gotta work better on that. It's interesting because yeah, exactly. What I'm doing is I can with some of my stocks do that option. It's just I think I gotta get a little better. Maybe we'll have to work together, and I'll have to kind of see. I think it's more my expirations or what exactly I'm doing. But yeah, I gotta work on a little more of that. You know, it's interesting because what I do, I've been doing it now for 9 years, and it's still pretty gibberish over what you guys do. So it's more of that process of what you guys were saying, like chasing another silver object when I still feel like I am perfecting my craft a little bit.
makes
So
sense.
I still think I need to do a little better where I'm at, you know?
Yeah.
I still
Yeah,
see a lot of opportunity where I'm at too. But
for
yeah,
sure.
I got to jump in there without a doubt. Well, I need to make a little side account. And I also going back to that question that everybody's always so a little shy to say because somebody was talking about being in it for 10 years. And it simply could be a financial thing too. I don't know if anybody ever wants to admit that, but you do need to have funds. You can't just sit there like TG was saying and battle with money that you're going to be dealing with all your life. So there was some great accomplishments that I got to accomplish this year with engagements and all that stuff. But those stuff as being your own boss, that comes from your own account. So, building it back up and kind of growing that and then having that now ability to say, all right, I have the flexibility to try something else now. So once I get there, which I do think will be next year.
Well, I would love
Can
to see a session with Trendy and Mike on the mic at the same time. That would be fun. A
There you
session
go.
or two. I think
Could
you
be
guys.
cool. I mean, I always want to do what he does, but I'm also kind of what's the right word? A little fearful because I
Yeah, I
don't,
should have
you
Mike,
asked
know,
you. Why
join one
don't
of
you
your
just
happy hours,
yeah,
John.
yeah,
There you go.
yeah.
What I'll tell y'all is that $2 to $5 stocks are awesome for selling options. The
They are.
premiums are so elevated, you can make mint selling
See,
those things.
see, I think we're
No, I
we're
mean, yeah.
all thinking together here. There's something there for
And,
Yeah,
sure.
I
and
mean,
I've heard that we have some options traders who could really help you out, Mike.
yeah. Oh, I know. I'm ready
Know
for
a
it. Trust
couple
me. And we
people.
it's good. We gotta all work our magic together. But iRobot, yes, that was a huge option play this week. I was just looking at those options and I was just playing the stock. But that's a good example of it. Exactly.
Nice. Okay.
Fantastic. All right. Well, we've hit the bottom of the hour. Thank you everyone for joining us. This was a ton of fun. Happy holidays. A reminder that we'll have Jerry's going to post a survey for those of us in the Zoom call, but we will have keep it on your calendar, the tax loss harvesting, couple of sessions for that. Which will be, it's always a fun time. And, JC is a ton of fun anyway, as is everybody else. And the whole gang is going to be involved this year. So keep that in mind. Thank you all. And we'll see you next year.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thanks, Lorna. Nice job, guys.
Happy
Bye.
holidays.